King Belshazzar was the son of the great King Nebuchadnezzar, the ruler whom God had exalted above all nations. Nebuchadnezzar's power was unmatched, yet his pride led him to forget that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men. Because of his arrogance, God struck him with madness. He lived like an animal, eating grass in the fields, his royal glory stripped away. But when Nebuchadnezzar finally humbled himself, acknowledging that heaven rules, God restored his sanity and returned his throne. This history was well known to Belshazzar, yet he failed to learn from his father's example. Instead of walking in humility, he chose arrogance, setting the stage for the dramatic events recorded in Daniel chapter 5. Belshazzar hosted a lavish banquet for 1,000 nobles. In his arrogance, he ordered the sacred vessels taken from the temple in Jerusalem to be brought in. He and his guests drank wine from them, praising gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. The act was not just indulgence, it was outright defiance against the God of Israel. Belshazzar exalted himself above the Most High, dishonoring what was holy. His pride mirrored his father's former arrogance, but unlike Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar showed no humility or reverence. This feast set the stage for divine intervention, as God would not allow his name to be mocked without consequence. Suddenly, in the midst of the revelry, a human hand appeared and began writing on the plaster wall of the palace. The king's face turned pale, his knees knocked together, and his strength melted away. The sight terrified him beyond measure. He called for astrologers, enchanters, and wise men to interpret the writing, promising rewards of purple robes, gold chains, and high rank. Yet none could read or explain the message. The hall filled with confusion and fear as the king's arrogance gave way to trembling. The queen, hearing the commotion, entered the banquet hall. She reminded Belshazzar of Daniel, a man in whom the spirit of the holy gods dwelt. Daniel had served Nebuchadnezzar faithfully, interpreting dreams and solving mysteries when no one else could. She urged Belshazzar to summon him, confident that Daniel could explain the writing. Her words pointed to the one man who still honored the Most High and could reveal his judgment. Daniel was a young man from Judah, taken captive when Babylon conquered Jerusalem. Though exiled, he distinguished himself by faithfulness, wisdom, and integrity. From the beginning, Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the king's food or wine, choosing instead to honor the God of Israel. His devotion set him apart, and God granted him knowledge and understanding beyond his peers. Soon he became known in Babylon as a man in whom the Spirit of the Most High dwelt. His reputation was not built on ambition or compromise, but on humility and steadfastness. Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty king of Babylon, once had a troubling dream that none of his wise men could explain. He demanded not only the interpretation, but the dream itself, threatening death to all his counselors if they failed. Fear spread throughout the palace, for the task was impossible. Yet Daniel sought God in prayer, and the mystery was revealed to him in a vision. With courage, Daniel went before the king, declaring that no man could reveal such secrets. But there's a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. In the heart of ancient Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar was haunted by a dream that no wise man could interpret until Daniel was called forward. Standing before the mighty king, Daniel gestured toward the heavens, acknowledging that only the God of heaven reveals deep and hidden mysteries. The king saw a vision of a colossal statue, a terrifying and dazzling monument standing in the darkness of a vast, empty plain. The head of the statue was crafted of pure, gleaming gold, reflecting a brilliance that outshone the surrounding gloom of the vision. Below the gold, its chest and arms were forged of silver, representing the next great power that would rise in the history of man. The statue's belly and thighs were cast in bronze, a third kingdom destined to rule with strength over the face of the whole earth. Then came the legs of solid iron, a fourth empire that would crush and break everything in its path like a relentless hammer. But the feet were a fragile mixture of iron and brittle clay, a kingdom divided against itself, unable to truly bond or remain stable. As the king watched, a stone was cut out of a mountain, not by human hands, but by the power of the divine. The stone hurtled through the air with supernatural speed, striking the statue directly upon its weak feet of iron and clay. Suddenly, the entire structure collapsed. Gold, silver, bronze, and iron shattered into dust, blown away by a violent wind like autumn chaff. But the stone that struck the statue began to grow, transforming into a massive mountain that expanded until it filled the entire horizon. Daniel interpreted the vision. "Your Majesty, you are the head of gold. The King of Kings has given you dominion and power." After Babylon, an inferior kingdom of silver would rise, followed by a third of bronze that would rule over the known world. Then a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, would emerge to break and crush all others, establishing a rule of cold, hard force. Finally, the world would be divided. Just as iron cannot mix with clay, these nations would try to unite, but ultimately fail. But in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed or conquered. It is an eternal kingdom, one that will consume all earthly powers and stand forever as a beacon of righteousness and peace. Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful man on earth, realized he was in the presence of a truth greater than his own majesty. The king fell to his knees before Daniel, honoring the young man and the God who revealed the secrets of the future. He declared that Daniel's God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings, the revealer of every mystery. Daniel was elevated to high honor, serving as a reminder that earthly kingdoms rise and fall, but God's kingdom is forever. Through this, Daniel's role as prophet and servant of God was firmly established. He was not merely a dream interpreter, but a witness to the sovereignty of the Most High over all nations. And now in old age, Daniel was brought before the current king, Belshazzar. The king offered him riches and power if he could interpret the writing. But Daniel refused the gifts, declaring that he would read the words regardless. He reminded Belshazzar of Nebuchadnezzar's story, how God humbled him until he acknowledged heaven's rule. Yet Belshazzar had not learned from this example. Instead, he exalted himself against the Lord, desecrating holy vessels and praising lifeless idols. Daniel's rebuke was sharp. Belshazzar had failed to honor the God who held his breath and controlled his destiny. Daniel then read the inscription, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. He explained, Mene, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Upharsin, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. This was not a warning, but a verdict. Belshazzar's fate was sealed. His arrogance had reached its limit, and judgment was imminent. True to his word, Belshazzar rewarded Daniel with honors. Yet that very night, the prophecy was fulfilled. The Medes and Persians invaded Babylon, and Belshazzar was slain. His kingdom, once mighty, collapsed in a single evening. The arrogance of a king who mocked God ended in sudden destruction. The chapter closes with the rise of Darius the Mede, who received the kingdom. Daniel chapter 5 in the Bible is a powerful reminder that God rules over the kingdoms of men. Nebuchadnezzar's story showed that humility brings restoration, but Belshazzar's downfall revealed that pride and defiance lead to destruction. The writing on the wall has become a timeless phrase, symbolizing inevitable judgment. This chapter warns us that no matter how powerful or secure we may feel, our lives are in God's hands. Honor him, for he alone determines the rise and fall of kings. With this, we have 3 scriptures learning. Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. Daniel 2:21. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings, and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. Psalm 1:4-7-6. The Lord lifts up the humble, He casts the wicked down to the ground. Thank you for watching. God bless you and see you in the next video.